30,000 people. 30,000 people every day. So once upon a time it wasn't like that. It was quite very quiet. And the system was Prabhupada's quarters, as you know, the configuration there is over on one side, and he would come out of his quarters, and then some devotees would join him, and then we'd go to the front gate, make a right-hand turn, and across from the front gate was just agricultural fields. And then you took a right-hand turn and went down in agricultural fields in both directions. So one morning, we were walking and he turned around. There's different places he would turn around. We're coming back, and off at a distance as we're approaching the temple, we could hear kirtan. The devotees knew it was time for Prabhupada to return. So Prabhupada said, "Where are all the devotees?" And someone said, "They're at the gate, Prabhupada, having kirtan, waiting for you to return." And then Prabhupada said again, "Where are all the devotees?" And then he stopped and put his cane down, which was like, listen up kind of gesture. And he said, when there's opportunity to have the physical association of the spiritual master, one should take it. Vapo and Vani, we describe the two terms. Vani, opportunity, should be taken. No, not everyone could go on the morning walk because it wasn't realistic or possible, but he was just making a point. And then he moved on, then stopped again and said, and when there is Vapu, there will also be Vani. And of the two, Vani is more important because not always one have Vapu. So Vani is most important. Then he said it again. When there's an opportunity for physical association, one should seek that opportunity. And then he moved further. This is the same morning walk, we're getting closer to the gate. And he made a point about preaching Krishna consciousness, which is certainly what our founder Acharya was doing for our benefit and the world's benefit. So he said, preaching means, and he held his hand up in the air and moved his hand like this. Preaching means you see a spark and you fan the spark. And then he said it again. Preaching means you see a spark and you fan the spark. Not too much. You could put out the spark. A little bit, you fan the spark. And then the spark can become a flame. You look around. And a very expert preacher can turn the flame into a big flame. His eyes got big. And he smiled. He was telling us what he was doing. An expert person turns the flame into a blaze. And all of that is circling back to what Anuta had to say. And to the Kirti. This is just service. We're instruments of. We're not doing nothing more than being instruments of. And so we pray that we collectively, individually and collectively become suited instruments so that the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our recipients succession will go on successfully. In our case, particularly with Prabhupada in the center.
We're asking all the speakers to please sit in this chair here so that everyone can see all the people sitting upstairs. And I've been given this little bell. If you hear this bell, it means you've done like 4 minutes and you have a minute left before the hook comes out. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for being here. I think this boat is a little more fancy than the Jaladuta. What do you think? Yeah, so when I think of Srila Prabhupada's mission, I believe that he wanted to create millions of saintly, pure-hearted devotees of Krishna to bless the world. And I wanted to just share a little story that I think, as Malati shared, a story that's more recent. I think this is an important story also. It's a Boston story. And once we were on Harinam Sankirtan here in Boston, I think it was on Boylston Street, and this very gentle devotee was leading the kirtan, and a man came up, maybe he was drunk, but this man came up and just really punched him in the stomach. And this devotee kind of fell over, and then, kind of long story short, what happened was, this man was arrested, it went to court, and the man claimed that the devotee had punched him, and he was the victim. And the judge, this is the point of the story, the judge looked at this saintly devotee who was so gentle. The judge looked at this gentle devotee and he said, "But how is it possible of this man?" And so he just threw out the case, just by the saintly demeanor of this devotee. So I think this is important to understand Prabhupada's mission. This is what he asked of us, to become saintly representatives of Krishna consciousness all over the world. And I wanted to share something also. In the Prabhupada Lilamrita, the second volume, Planting the Seed, I think this story is significant just because of the fact that Satsvarupa Maharaj put this story in the book. So one of the early devotees there at 2nd Avenue had a dream of Prabhupada. And in this dream, Srila Prabhupada was dancing and beautiful and young, looking maybe like Lord Nityananda, maybe like Nuniketan Ramdas, who's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he was young and beautiful and vibrant. And the devotee asked him, "But Prabhupada, why don't we see you like this?" And Prabhupada said, "Because then you would only follow me for my beauty." So I think it's so interesting that Prabhupada came on this boat in a very unassuming way. He came across the 7 seas, he came on the Jaladuta in a nondescript little freighter ship, and he slipped into the US, slipped into New York as just a little old man, as Mukunda Maharaj says in his interview in Yadavar Prabhu's wonderful movie. He says, he looked like I should help him. He looked like he needed help. So, it's so interesting that Prabhupada came almost in that guise of an unassuming little old man who needed help. And to me, I reflect back on a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto, where the materialistic demoniac teachers of Prahlad Maharaj were complaining about Prahlad Maharaj. And they said that Vishnu is like an axe who's come to cut down our great tree of our great family. And Prahlad Maharaj is like the blade of that axe, So Srila Prabhupada also once spoke of this, that his mission was actually to cut down the demoniac society and replace it with a saintly, Krishna-conscious society of saintly, kind-hearted devotees who would transform the world. So once he described that he is like that blade, and that his Western disciples were like a branch from the tree of that demoniac society. And together with that branch of the tree, he would be able to cut down. And I'm not saying Western society, because there were things Prabhupada appreciated about Western society. He appreciated the good work ethic, that was not caste conscious, but just the demoniac strains in society that we see both in the East and in the West. So how beautiful is that? That this is Prabhupada's mission to cut down the demoniac society. And remember that interview with Srila Prabhupada where the kind of arrogant reporter in London asked him, why have you come here? Like, we know everything here in London, why have you come? And Prabhupada said, I have come to teach what you have forgotten. And I was thinking that's so beautiful, right? But I was thinking it's more than that. He came to teach what we've forgotten, yes, but also what we long for. Krishna Bhakti Rasa. That's what he came to give us. What our hearts really have always longed for. And so we think of Prabhupada as the precious cargo or the passenger on the Jaladuta boat. But really, again from Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that he's the captain of the ship. He's not just a precious cargo of the ship. He's the captain of the ship who can deliver us across the ocean of ignorance, and which diminishes all the good qualities of the Kali Yuga, which diminishes all the good qualities of a human being. And hearing these stories of one last Vrindavan story, it's very short. Okay? So this is a sweet, I just thought I should share this. So once we were in Vrindavan and we made some gopi dolls that were supposed to go on the altar with Krishna, Balaram, and the gopis. And when we put them in Prabhupada's room when he was out on his walk, and when he came back, he became like, he had been in an angry mood because he'd been very ill. But when he came back, he changed into like a little boy. And this is so beautiful, I wanted to share with all of you. He gestured toward the gopis, and Shrutikirti, you were there. We were all in his room, this ragtag band of excuses for disciples, really. And Prabhupada gestured to the gopis like this, and he said, you are like them. You are all like them. And I was like, whoa, talk about Prabhupada's amazing, Uttamadhikari vision, seeing us to be one day maybe like the gopis. So thank you all so much.
It was her husband who told me to ring the bell on this. Thank you very much. Next we're going to hear from Yadavara Prabhu for a few minutes, and after that, Bali Mardam Prabhu, you're next if you're among us. And as yes, please come to be ready so you can speak right away. So Yadavara Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada King. Thank you all for being here. Such a wonderful group of devotees and such a wonderful festival. I spoke last night. I'd like to do something very quickly. I can't find it. I just want to emphasize repeat the importance of Nutama Prabhu's message about Prabhupada being our founding acharya. But I'd like to also add, and I'm sure many of us understand this, that he is our Shiksha Guru. We can have many Shiksha Gurus, but actually Srila Prabhupada in the society should be our prominent Shiksha Guru. What do you think? Yes. So many pastimes. I recall in Bombay, I was in Srila Prabhupada's room when this gentleman entered, and he sat down, and he was the one that offered Srila Prabhupada the room, the property in Judah. It was Mr. Nair. And he was shaking, he was very nervous, he was sweating. I was suspicious. I'm sure Prabhupada knew the future. And we know the history, the long history of the Judah property. The next day, Prabhupada, we all got in a taxi, actually Srila Prabhupada and myself, Tamal Krishna Goswami, our date, and Shyam Sundar Prabhu. We went to the land. Now Prabhupada knew that property because he had visited Sumati Maharaji, who gave him the ticket on Jaladutta. That was her house right on the beach. And very close to that was the Juhu property. So he knew that property. He immediately wanted it. So the next day after that, he started arranging for us to leave this gorgeous apartment at Kash Ganga overlooking the Arabian Sea and move to Juhu, which is a tremendous austerity. I'm sure you've heard of this austerity. So Vishaka Devi and I spent 2.5 years there serving Prabhupada. And we saw his unswerving determination, enthusiasm, and patience. Patience is probably the most difficult. We can be fired up, we can be enthusiastic, but we're in this for the long term. And we have to understand and be very patient with ourselves, patient with others. So thank you very much for participating today. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Thank you very much, Yadavar Prabhu. Next, we're going to hear from Barley Mardhan Prabhu, someone I've known for many, many years, way back in 1971. Please come, Barley Mardhan Prabhu.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Without getting a second chance, there was a couple of things I forgot to include in my previous talk. One of them was that Prabhupada taught us so many things. The one thing that we have such awe and veneration for him. Sometimes we don't realize some of the things he's teaching us are how to love. Indra Maharaj had quoted a letter that Prabhupada wrote in September of 1966 regarding his relationship with his guru. And I found it very eye-opening in a sense. And this is the letter, September 28th, 1966. Srila Prabhupada wrote, "At his first sight of me, my spiritual master also saw me with such love. It was my very first darshan of him that I learned how to love. It is his boundless mercy that he has engaged an unworthy person like me in fulfilling some of his desires. It is his mercy to engage me in preaching the message of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath." So I think all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples can take some information from that to understand that the love between the disciple and the spiritual master, which was so evident. I mean, myself, I committed so many stupid things, and Srila Prabhupada never chastised me. He was always so loving. So his causeless mercy was so great. I look at it that he didn't introduce everything to us right away. He gradually gave us the tools to become Krishna conscious. I remember when he introduced the Gaur Arti, and he's opening a portal into the spiritual world. When we have Gaur Arti, Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, and all his confidence are all present. We may not realize it, but he's actually giving us an entry into the spiritual world by bringing it within our purview. And it's up to us whether we want to enter that world. He's opening the door and saying, "Follow me." But we have to choose. It's like the third generation devotees who are being born in these families. They may have great karma, but the karma is not getting them into the spiritual world. They choose to utilize that opportunity. And in a letter Prabhupada handwritten when he was having meetings at 72nd Street in New York City, I think it was the place of Dr. Misra. Someone can correct me if I'm not correct about that. But on West 72nd Street. And he wrote, "Take advantage of this great opportunity." So we have to choose. He's opening the door, but nothing is automatic in Krishna consciousness. Free will is always there. By our free will, we left the spiritual world, and by our free will, we can go back to the causeless mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his compassion for the human condition. Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Next, we're going to hear from our brother, Jaya Prabhu.
So this is a unique opportunity at this I doubt that hardly any of us will be here 10 years from now as far as our group here. We wish there would be. This might be our last opportunity to glorify Srila Prabhupada and the fact of his mission to come to the West and arriving here in Boston 60 years ago. But actually, I didn't know I was going to be speaking. He just told me 31 minutes ago. So. What came to my mind was Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, the first big Gaur Purnim festival in 1974. They had a Gaur Purnim festival with the local Indian devotees in 72, 73, but the first big Mayapur festival was in 74. And some of the devotees, they were with Prabhupada in India at that time, and but very few. Most of us had never been to India, had no idea what India was like or what to expect. But Prabhupada ordered at least all the temple presidents should come for the Gaur Purnim festival and see Mayapur. And it was meant to be an illumination to understand more of Srila Prabhupada's mission, Lord Chaitanya's mission, coming from Mayapur, spreading from Mayapur. So, but we all set out on this big airplane. It was one of those, Prabhupada called them jumbo jet. Jumbo jet, it was full of devotees, completely full of devotees. In fact, it was so full of devotees, and actually devotees, so many hours alone on the airplane that they wanted to have a kirtan. So many devotees stood up in the aisles and started having kirtan and dancing. So actually the whole plane started going like this. And the captain screamed over the loudspeaker, "Stop, stop." The plane's going to go down. But we got to India. It was quite a shock, as I imagine it was for the first devotees who went with Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Many of you are from Indian descent, but for us it was quite a novelty, quite a new thing. We had no idea. But we went there on Prabhupada's order. We went there because it was a new part of Prabhupada's mission. We thought that Prabhupada's mission was our little temple in San Francisco, in New York, in Boston, and wherever, in the West, in America. And that was it. We thought that was, we had no idea of the scope and the magnitude of the Prabhupada's mission. So it was quite an adventure. Because we got out, we went to Delhi, and then we went on to Calcutta, and then got on buses from Calcutta. But like I said, the only motivation, only desire, reason to go there was because Prabhupada asked it, and we went to see Srila Prabhupada. And also for the years after that, to go to the Mayapur festival, but we just went to see Srila Prabhupada. We're not so interested in going to India or seeing him, but to go to Srila, that was an opportunity to spend all month with Srila Prabhupada for most of us. It was a rare opportunity. And when he asked me to say something, I had a vision. I remembered, because the trip coming out on the bus was, the bus broke down. The bus broke down on the way out. And it was quite amazing because Uttama Shloka, the president of the Chicago temple, he was a big kirtan leader. We all got out of the bus and everyone started having kirtan. And it was We were used to being in the West where, you know, people are not so friendly. It's very foreign to them. But we got out in Kirtan and all these people came out of the village. We didn't even see the village, but all these people started appearing from the village with their madanga and started having kirtan all together with devotees. So this was a wonderful introduction to Maya Pradhan. But I still remember the arrival, because we arrived in the evening, and the only building at that time, and was only half built, was the building, what do they call it, the Lotus Building? Yes, the Lotus Building. It wasn't that there was no connection or other piece, it was just the Lotus Building only. The rest was rice fields, it was empty. And so we went running in, we finally got out, we went running in, and Prabhupada's Vyasa-san was on the backside. We go run in and go, I'm sure Prabhupada was there. So that was the fulfillment of our desire, because our desire, Krishna consciousness for us was Srila Prabhupada. There was no connection with India, with the culture, Vedic culture, nothing, just Srila Prabhupada. So we just ran in to grab the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and take shelter in this new part of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Next, we're going to hear from His Holiness, Radhanath Maharaj.
This book we sit on is meant to represent the MV Jaladuta. What a glorious celebration, overfilled with devotees, enjoying kirtan, harikatha. Soon there'll be a feast of prasad. From the time I became a devotee within ISKCON, when difficulties came upon us, there was a meditation. To meditate on being with Srila Prabhupada on the Jaladuta as he was approaching the Boston Harbor in his life mission. Today, I would like to read two passages from Srila Prabhupada's diary. These are his intimate prayers to Lord Krishna. Perhaps he never intended this to be published. His preaching is in the English language, but he wrote these prayers in his own native tongue of Bengali. It was simply Srila Prabhupada's loving prayers to Krishna. There wasn't a temple or a boat full of devotees. It was just him. Srila Prabhupada writes, and this is 7 days before he arrived at this Commonwealth Pool. Today the ship is plying very smoothly. I feel today better. But I am feeling separation from Sri Vrindavan and my lords Sri Govinda Gopinath and Radha Damodar. The only solace is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which I am tasting the nectarine of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. I have left Bharat Bhumi just to execute the order of Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in pursuance of Lord Chaitanya's order. I have no qualification, but I have taken up the risk just to carry out the order of His divine grace. I depend fully on their mercy. I depend fully on their mercy, so far away from Vrindavan. The next passage he wrote 7 months later in New York City. According to Mayapur Panjaka, today is Adivas Day of Gaur Purnima. Devotees at Vrindavan and Navadvip are enjoying the celebration. I am here alone, without any devotee companion. But I have come here to serve the Lord and not for personal happiness. I am prepared to live in hell. I am prepared to live in hell even if I am able to serve the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted that his mission should be propagated all over the world, and that is my objective. I do not mind the inconvenience personally felt. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear from Apurva Prabhu and his wife Kamalini Devi.
This is auspicious day. I remember seeing Srila Prabhupada in 1971. We greeted Srila Prabhupada at the airport, and immediately when I saw Prabhupada, tears flowed from my eyes, and I really experienced that here is my real father, my real spiritual master. When I think also of Prabhupada's contribution, I see it as a mission of bringing forth prasadam distribution, because this is somehow the service that I was given. Today in America we're seeing that only over 80% of the population, their main food is beef, and how the cows are being so mercilessly killed. Srila Prabhupada created this ISKCON based also on Hare Krishna restaurants. That was his vision, that in every major city there should be a Hare Krishna restaurant. He sent a letter out to all the GBC written by Jayatirtha explaining exactly how it would be done. Because this was also a pastime where I had the opportunity to be in a darshan with Srila Prabhupada with some of the BTG distributors on Long Island. And I asked Prabhupada a question. Many times they will not take the books. So what should we do? We not take the BTGs. And he said, give them prasadam. So if ISKCON can create these wonderful restaurants and give people a positive alternative to wonderful Krishna prasadam, their life can be transformed, because by their eating of the cow, they are creating so much sinful activity, so many wars, so much pain, because the people that are doing this is a result of so many wars that are going on in the world today. So I thank Srila Prabhupada on this special day for giving me the opportunity to do what I love to do, giving me a life I love and living it powerfully in the association and Sangha of so many wonderful Vaishnavas who are dedicated to Srila Prabhupada's mission and are committed to give their lives in that capacity. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
I'm going to sing a little song written by Mangalananda, also known as Michael Cassidy. A song about Srila Prabhupada called A Lover of the Soul. He's a kind and gentle soul. His heart is never cold. So peaceful and poetic, with a message true and bold. He's never seeking praise, so silent and so grave. And his transcendental love is the magic in his ways. And when I see his love, I know I've got a long, long way to go. When will I taste the love that he is feeling inside? He's always meek and mild, with a warm and friendly smile, so simple in his living, singing all the while. He sings out Krishna's name, his glory and his fame, to serve his Lord and Master, in pleasure or in pain. And when I see his love, I know I've got a long, long way to go. When will I taste the love that he is feeling inside? You'll find no lust and greed in a heart that's pure and free. He's a lover of the Lord, and his life is ecstasy. He only dies to live, and living tries to give the happiness that's found in the sound of Krishna's name. And when I see his love, I know I've got a long, long way to go. When will I taste the love that he is feeling inside? So Srila Prabhupada, he wanted everybody to experience this love for Krishna, and he gave us a whole lifestyle to experience it, a lifestyle by which we can access that love. So in the 25th chapter of the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of devotional service, in the purport to the very first verse, Srila Prabhupada says, material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in the Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one's knowledge expands. On the platform of passion, there is no knowledge, for passion is simply an impetus to enjoy material benefits. On the platform of ignorance, there is no knowledge and no enjoyment, but simply life, almost like that of animals. And so amazingly, Srila Prabhupada's, it sounds like, wow, how can that be? Material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for by this transcendental knowledge. So that is the access. And then he also writes that human beings are meant for regulated life. By nature, there is regulation in animal life also, but that is not like the regulative life as described in the scriptures or by the authorities. Human life is regulated life, not animal life. In regulated life only, one can understand transcendental knowledge. And so we just see Prabhupada's great compassion. I think that we may take for granted the lifestyle that we've learned from Srila Prabhupada, and this lifestyle which now, after some practice, it becomes a natural way of life for us. But it is, it's due to his great compassion that he made it available to us. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, you may feel a little flying in a few minutes. It's actually going to start moving. And we're going to hear again from Pyari Lohan.
Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm just going to speak a little. I was speaking about this earlier when we were at the church, but most of you were probably not there. But I'm going to continue from where I left off. Srila Prabhupada driving in the car. This is in Brooklyn. We're driving to Kennedy Airport. I'm 2 cars behind Prabhupada, and then when we get to the airport, Prabhupada's car pulls right up to the terminal. I pull into the parking lot in Kennedy Airport, and I've had experience with them from Brooklyn that you can't find a spot. It takes you like a half an hour to find a spot. And I remember praying, Krishna, Krishna, please let us find a spot. And as soon as we got in, there was one spot right there. And we got in, and we ran into the terminal. It was me and a couple of other devotees, 2 or 3 other devotees. The brahmachari is doing book distribution. And then when we got into, Prabhupada went into a room. They had a room for him. We got into the room, and in the room, there was about maybe 20 people in the room, and there was like, 100 or so outside the room. And in the doorway was Gopal Krishna. He wasn't a Maharaj at the time, he was a householder. And Srila Prabhupada saw him in the doorway and he called him into the room. And Gopal Krishna went like this because he had his army clothes on because he came straight from work. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, you are the real sannyasi, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. And then he's talking to Gopal Krishna about his wife. And in India, you have to get your wife bangles. Prabhupada's telling him, so in India, if you can't afford gold or silver, then you get glass bangles, but you have to give your wife bangles. Then he mentioned to Gopal Krishna, well, it's to everyone, but wherever grains are nicely kept, there is a good leader, and there are no quarrels in the household. Automatically, Lakshmi Devi will come into your home. You don't even have to invite her. And then he said, so you recently got a raise? And Gopal Krishna said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And he said, you should give that money to Bali Madan. She was the temple president at the time. And he said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And then there was some other discussions about something to do with marriage and so on. Brahmananda, who was a sannyasi, he was there. And he said, today, the women, they want to go to work and have the men stay home and do all the housework and take care of the kids or something like that. And Brahmananda was saying that to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that is why you took sannyas. And then I think Brahmananda may have felt a little bad about that, so Prabhupada said, no, that's okay. Like, that's a good reason to take sannyas. When we drove out, I mentioned this in the previous class, when we first left the airport, they gave Prabhupada a picture of Radha Govinda because he said the deities looked beautiful that day, that morning. And they, of course, you can't just print pictures, but they had a press and they had a photo place and they had a dark room, so they printed a picture like 8.5 by 11, framed it, gave it to Prabhupada when he left. So he put the picture on the end table. And they brought in watermelon and sliced little cubes. They cut out all the seeds. Watermelon in those days had seeds. So they had to cut out all the seeds. And he took the plate, Prabhupada, they gave it to him, he put it down by the deities. And he said, wherever we go, we can have a temple, we can worship Krishna. And then someone's offering Prabhupada incense. And after she didn't know what to do with the incense, And Bali Madan took the incense, and he didn't know what to do with the incense. And Prabhupada motioned to give him the incense. And when they gave Prabhupada the incense, he took a chunk of watermelon off the plate and stuck the incense in the water. Okay, well, that's about it though.
We're going to be hearing from Her Grace Jiva.
Hi, Srila Prabhupada. Well, Srila Prabhupada isn't an ordinary man, we all know that. He's a Vaikuntha man, he's a Goloka man, who came with a mission. He wasn't of this world, yet he was in it. And you could feel that in his presence. Every move he made. When I first saw him in San Francisco, I didn't want to take my eyes off of him. It was like the perfection of my eyes. Hearing him was the perfection of our ears. Every move he made was like, I could detect there was no false ego. He was acting out of love for Krishna. This actually crossed my mind when I saw him playing the kartals. Come on in here. Closer. And when I saw him coming back from a morning walk, I was very much awestruck or dumbfounded or one of those descriptions that gives you in the scripture where you're just very much in awe. I couldn't believe that I was in the same proximity as Prabhupada. And I saw him coming back from the walk, and it was like everything faded away. I just saw him. It's like I couldn't see anything else. It was just Prabhupada coming. And in that moment, something in my heart, I became overwhelmed with the urge just to serve him. All I wanted to do was to serve this person. And I mean, it's dormant in everyone's heart. Nitya Sila Krishna Prema. Everyone has this Bhakti Lata Bij in their heart. But something about the pure devotee being in his presence, he has an awakening potency that just, you become like one with that urge, It's like all you can think about is serving this person. I was living in the temple and we were serving, but something about being in his presence was so potent. I mean, I feel I did meet him first in his divine Bhaktivedanta purports. I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam before going to school, and especially one time, it hit me. I was reading the first canto, that everything he says is exactly the way it is. He speaks the absolute truth, and this person is trustworthy. Everything he says is the way it is. I might not understand it, but I knew it was the truth. And he lives forever in his books. He said that himself. When we read his purports, it's his personal ecstasies. And, he lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. And I also felt that nothing in this world was good enough for him. I saw him in the airport sitting in the regular seat, just the airport seat that everybody sits in. And I was feeling, he's so kind, he's accepting what paltry things we, offer him. But he's worthy, the saint of his caliber is worthy of so much more. And then I saw him, that was a few days in San Francisco for the Rath Yatra. That was the first time I saw him in person. The year before that, my parents wouldn't let me go. I was living at home, I was in high school. I really wanted to go, and my desire was so strong that I actually went in my dream, and I saw Prabhupada in my dream at the Rath Yatra. And it showed me that everything is based on desire. If we really want Krishna, he won't keep himself from us. But it's us that are not ready, to accept the mercy. And that's why Prabhupada came here, to give us all this mercy. Like the church we went to, it was mercy. It's all about mercy. And that's, Prabhupada is the embodiment of mercy, of Krishna's mercy.
And I saw him in India, but most of my encounters with Prabhupada was in separation. Even the first time we ran to see him in the airport, and we did see him, we thought everybody would be there, but there was just a few sannyasis, couple sannyasis, and a woman with her baby carriage, and me and another devotee. And we paid obeisances, and right after that, Prabhupada got up and went in the plane. It was like and we just had to meditate on how our process is one of separation. The same in India. Prabhupada was very ill in 1977. I was in Mayapur, and he wasn't giving class because I was ill, but I saw him come out of the temple, get in his car, and drive away. So that's it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's such an honor to be here, and I really just love hearing all these stories of Srila Prabhupada, and I want to continue hearing them after I speak. So I spoke some yesterday, but I was just thinking how Srila Prabhupada walked all over Boston. He walked down this Commonwealth Pier, he took a right, he went into the city of Boston and blessed Boston. And when he stayed at the temple in North Beacon Street, he went for his morning walk, but he just walked out the temple door onto the sidewalk and he took a left and he just started walking down the street. We didn't take him to a fancy park or anything. He just walked down North Beacon Street for like 20 minutes, turned around and walked back. So I was just thinking about that, how Boston is so special that way. Also, I wasn't here for this, but I was told by devotees that were, is when Boston, they just had the little Radha Krishna deities, and Srila Prabhupada one day was just standing in front of the deities with his hands folded, and he started to cry. And so he was crying for a short time, and he turned to the devotees and he said, "I'm simply praying to Krishna that I don't fall into Maya." So it's such humility, and of course that's why he would never fall into Maya. And I believe those deities are still on the altar here, the little Radha Krishna deities. Wow. So yeah, in 1971, I talked about it a little bit yesterday, when Srila Prabhupada came here, he installed Radha Gopi Vallabha. It was so wonderful. He stayed overnight at the temple, and he stayed there 2 nights. And while the ceremony was starting, Satsvut Maharaj was doing the Abhishek of the deities, Radha Gopi Vallabha. He asked for 4 people to read scriptures in the 4 corners. So some devotees started reading from Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and maybe Nectar Devotion. And then Srila Prabhupada, his servant was Aravinda. He said, "Aravinda, give me the Brahma Samhita." So Aravinda went and got him the Brahma Samhita book. And Srila Prabhupada put on his glasses. He was just sitting on the floor on a pillow. And out loud, he started to sing all the Brahma Samhita prayers. And he did it in a very slow, really devotional, very deep, prayerful mood. And he didn't hurry it at all. And he went through and he sang all the verses in a very loving way. It was amazing to sit in front of him like that. And I'm just thinking of this one, that was during the initiation, and it was actually initiation and installation of Radha Gopi Vallabha. It was all the same ceremony. And this one thing that I remember is after, we had gotten our names, and I don't remember exactly where in the ceremony, but Srila Prabhupada said, so now you've gotten initiated into the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Who knows what the 10 offenses are for chanting the holy name? And, we were kind of quiet, but Jadharani was there. So Jadharani said, Srila Prabhupada, the first offense is to blaspheme the pure devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. And Prabhupada said, no. And we were like, shocked. And he said, not pure devotee, any devotee that has dedicated its life. So that was always a, wonderful reminder. Be careful judging devotees, you shouldn't do it. And I remember I had just, in the morning, received initiation. Srila Prabhupada had given my name, accepted all my karma. And I was standing in the hallway in front of his room with me and Petita Durant, another devotee who was there at the time. And because Prabhupada was staying at the temple, we had to share the woman's bathroom. The men and the woman were sharing the bathroom because Prabhupada was just using the other bathroom. We had it reserved for him. So I was just standing there with Petit, and all of a sudden, Srila Prabhupada comes out of the door. Thank you. And Petit just said, oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. He threw his hands up in the air, and we both paid our obeisances, and we got up and we thought, oh, wow, Prabhupada, just right there. And Prabhupada walked in the bathroom, he came back out, and Petit again yelled really loud, oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. And he paid his obeisances, so I paid my obeisances too. And this time when we stood up, Prabhupada was just standing there right in front of us. And he had this wonderful smile. I'll never forget it. It was so childish-like, and he felt like he was almost a little embarrassed that, Petit had yelled so loud, but he was also so full of compassion and so loving. And he just looked at us. He didn't say anything. And then he walked into his room. But I'll always remember that thing. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Devotees here in Boston are much easier to deal with than in Vrindavan, I can tell you that. Pancharatna Prabhu, Hare Krishna, welcome.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Here we are, and you look out the windows here and you see such grand buildings, such opulence. I don't know if any of you know Boston. You know Boston of 1960s. This was not an opulent place. This was seedy. Imagine the sailors coming off the boats. What are they looking for? They've been out to sea for months, and what do they want? And so the people who want to supply them, they're right there, right around here. So we can imagine and understand how Srila Prabhupada saw all of this and the background to which he wrote. And I think we'll be singing his song or later today. Is that on the schedule? I hope it is. Markine Bhagavad Dharma. After he came back from all of that, he writes, let me get it today. He says, I don't know. I don't know why you brought me here. You're so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business. You have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? He uses the word in Bengali, Ugrasthana. Ugrasthana. Rajas tomogune era svayachan. Vasudev kataruchi nahe se prasan. They're all covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion.
absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied. Therefore, they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand. At the end of his poem, he concludes, Bhakti nai, Veda nai, Name Kubdara, Bhakti Vedanta Nam, Ebe Sata Koro. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge. But I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I've been designated as Bhaktivedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. I remember one story I've heard, different versions, of when Prabhupada was receiving sannyas at the Kesha Gaudima. Krishnadas Babaji was there. And as those of you who have met Krishnadas Babaji know that he was just always chanting Hare Krishna. Joyfully chanting, happily chanting. And he was leading some kirtan, and now it was the time for the jagya. They're going to do Om Saha and all the jagyas. So the pujari who was doing the ceremonies turned to Krishnadas Babaji and motioned for him to kind of quiet down. Now is the time to hear the mantras. And Krishnadas Babaji reflects how Prabhupada turned to him and he did another motion. He wanted the holy names. And Krishnadas reflects at that time, when he saw this, he thought, he will do it. He will do it because of his faith in the holy names. So that's what he's given us. Just one closing remark. We are now entering the 60th anniversary of this arrival, but next year is the 60th anniversary of ISKCON, and the year after is the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's departure from our physical vision. We should reflect, how are we keeping him fully present, though he is physically, he's not limited. He can be here spiritually with us to the extent that we bring him to us. Of course, he is also not restricted by us. He's already working. His books are out there. He's doing his work. We can join. Hare Krishna.
Welcome aboard the Spirit of Boston. On behalf of your captain, crew, and entire staff, we wish you a very special bon voyage and smooth sail aboard the Spirit of Boston. In a moment, we will be getting underway. But first, I would like to tell you about the Spirit of Boston and her safety features. The Spirit is a specially designed U.S. Coast Guard approved vessel with a capacity of 600 passengers and crew. The Spirit made her maiden Boston voyage in 1985. She has been cruising Boston Harbor for 30 years. The vessel's interior and outside decks are entirely non-smoking. In the very unlikely event of an emergency, all passengers will be required to don a life jacket and await further instructions from the uniformed crew. Adult life jackets are located above the windows and behind the colored curtains on all enclosed decks. Child-sized life jackets are located on all 3 enclosed decks in the bow or forward portion of the deck. Upon request, a life jacket donning demonstration will be provided. In addition to life jackets, life rings are located on the top deck behind the pilot house, and one on the second deck stern. These are the orange, lifesaver-shaped flotation devices to be used in man-overboard situations. Please note that there are multiple exits from all of the enclosed decks, and take a minute to find the one closest to you. Doors are located at the forward and rear portion of the decks. As we cruise through Boston's inner harbor, please direct your attention to the USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides, the nation's oldest commissioned naval warship. Other points of interest in this area include Boston Garden, the Zakim Bridge, and United States Coast Guard Base. Bookending our cruise route is another historical point of interest. Fort Independence, located in South Boston on what's known as Castle Island. From Fort Independence, you'll have a front row seat to witness planes taking off and landing at Boston's as well as Boston's scenic harbor islands. You may even catch a glimpse of Boston Light, the nation's oldest manned lighthouse. If you have any questions about your cruise, safety, or our ship's operation, please feel free to ask any of our friendly crew members. Once again, we welcome you aboard. Bon voyage and enjoy your cruise aboard the Spirit of Boston.
And also now they're going to be handing out boxes of prashada, so you can eat it. We're here for the next hour as the boat travels around, anytime during that hour, but you should finish it while you're here. And please be neat and clean. Thank you. Vishnu Gata Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Vanatavadurubhyascha kripasinidhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I was thinking one thing. All glories to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Haribol. Those who are American history people, is it the case that the American Revolution started in Boston? Is that right? And was there another revolution that started in Boston? Okay, I just took it on you. Okay. There's another revolution that started in Boston, right? Hare Krishna. Then I'm going to go out on the limb here for a second. I'm going to make a suggestion. Usually when we speak in learned circles or Vaishnava circles, we want to quote what the previous authorities say, the acharyas, what Srila Prabhupada says. We don't want to make up stuff, because otherwise we would be off. So I'm just making this as a suggestion for your contemplation and your judgment, whether this applies. There's a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the second canto, spoken by Shukadev Goswami. Many of you might know this verse. It goes, Kirata Punandra Pulinda Pukasha Abhira Shumba Yavana Kasadaya Yeye Chapapa Nirupashraya Shraya Shudyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Nama. You know the verse? I'll translate. Kirata means a hunter. Hun, what are Hun? With the Huns, German people. Andhras, people from Andhra Pradesh. Pulinda Pokasha, these are the Greeks. Abhira Shubha Yavana, the Turks. Kasadaya, the Chinese. All these people, they will all become purified if they get in touch with someone who's taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yurupashraya Shreya. Shudyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namaha. So I'm proposing to you, I'm suggesting to do, like I said, I'm going out on a limb. This is a prediction of the activities of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Because no one else has taken people from all these different parts of the world and purified them through the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, for your consideration only. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Now we're going to hear from Her Grace Arundhati Devi. She was one of the very first devotees here in the Boston Temple.
Hare Krishna. I spoke this morning, so maybe some of you heard that. And some of my memories about Boston. I don't have that many memories, but I was just remembering in the first temple in Allston, Massachusetts, we were allowed, when Prabhupada came, we were allowed to go into his room and ask him questions. So I got my turn to go in. Jagirani came in with me, and I asked Prabhupada, can you hear Krishna's flute? And Prabhupada closed his eyes for a few seconds, and then he opened his eyes and said, "Why not?" Another memory I have is in the Beacon Street, Boston Temple. When Prabhupada came to visit there, he was looking around at all the way the householders were living. There was a lot of householders, and we had to share our rooms. We had a curtain in between, like one householder couple would have one side of the curtain, and the other householder couple would have the other side. And me and Pradyumna shared with Nara Narayan and Dina Diadra. So Prabhupada wanted to see if we were living up to standard, and he was not too pleased. He went around to the rooms, and he told us we had to really up our standard. We were like very messy. He said we had to wash our floors every day. I think before that time we thought we just have to wash Krishna's floor in the temple every day. We didn't think we had to wash it, clean our own floors every day. So he set the standard for us, and he taught us everything. Prabhupada taught us everything. He taught us how to cook. Most of us didn't know any cooking at all. I knew nothing at all, and I always considered it a miracle that I actually learned how to cook well enough that I could even cook for Srila Prabhupada and for the deities. He also taught us how to take care of our children. I got a number of personal instructions from him. So anybody that's a mother here might be interested in some of those instructions. One time we were in Mayapur. I went and we were traveling with Prabhupada, and my son was with me, was always staying with me, but one time Pradyumna said he could stay with him one night. So then the next morning, Prabhupada saw my son, and he asked him, have you bathed today? Have you taken your bath? And he really shook his head, but Prabhupada knew he hadn't bathed that day. So then Prabhupada called me up to his room later on, and he said, take very good care of your child. The husband cannot do, you must do. Well, I'll end there, but I always wondered whether Prabhupada meant my husband could not do, or all husbands cannot do. If anybody knows the answer, let me know. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada told you, right, your child was your deity to take care of. Glory.
Srila Prabhupada wrote in a letter to Arundhati that child worship was more important than deity worship. If you cannot take care of your child, I will take care of him. Yes, he says, now don't be confused.
Srikant Prabhu. Where is Srikant Prabhu? And then next will be Bhushara Prabhu, and then her Grace Devaki Nanda.
When I was brahmachari in Los Angeles, it was hard sometimes surviving on the temple prasadam. It just didn't agree with me very well. So sometimes I would buy my own groceries at the grocery store or at the Saradi store and make an offering. But we've been taught, you should only eat food offered to the deities, but here I was just making my own offerings. So I had some doubts. Is Prabhupada really accepting these? Well, it came a time I was working at the BBT and Prabhupada was going to come visit. So I thought I will buy some fruits and offer them to Prabhupada when he comes. So I went across the street to Balian's grocery store and I bought the ripest little basket of strawberries. That's about all I could afford, a little basket of strawberries. Very ripe, just right for that day, which Prabhupada didn't come for. It was delayed. So next day also he didn't come. And each day I have to pick the bad strawberries out and throw them away. And then on the third day, finally Prabhupada comes and there's only like 6 strawberries left or something. And I didn't have the nerve to actually hand them to Prabhupada, but he was going to be coming through right by my office where I was working right outside of Jayadvaita's office. Actually, I was just living in the hallway there. So there was a pillar, and I put the strawberries on top and put a little sign on it that says, "For Prabhupada." And so finally everyone comes through, the whole entourage, and Prabhupada comes, and he sees the sign and the 6 strawberries, and he holds up his hands like Prahlad, and he says, "Oh, for me? I've never imagined such humility." And he took one strawberry and, of course, threw it into his mouth and smiled. And then the most amazing thing, this is a loaves and fishes story, because the entourage, there's about 20 people following him, and there were only 6 strawberries, but everybody got one. One other story of Prabhupada, there in his book, we were distributing Krishna books, big hardbound Krishna books in Las Vegas for some reason, and going door to door. So I'm walking up to this house and carrying these big Krishna books, and the man in the house, he sees me and he comes out screaming, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" He's cursing at us. And then he shouts again and he says, "Wait, what is that? What is that you're carrying?" And I'm carrying the Krishna book. And I hold it up kind of, and it's the back cover that he's seeing. The back cover is a big picture of Prabhupada. And he says, "Wait, I know that man. I saw him at the airport. He's a good man. Give me that book." Gave me a good donation too. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Shri Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Tushar Prabhu. Do we have Tushar Prabhu here? Okay. Her Grace Devaki Nandan. Is she here? Okay. Oh. Devaki Nandan Prabhu. And then Dira Prabhu, then Gora Shakti Prabhu. So please be ready, come up forth here. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Please welcome Devaki Nandan Prabhu.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. I'm very fortunate to be here today. This is one of memorable festival. I'll tell one story. One of Prabhupada's friend, Mr. Sitaram Daga from Calcutta, he was visiting Juhu in 84. I was the vice president. So we took him for prasad in our Govinda restaurant. He told many things about his association with Prabhupada. And one of these things which he said, which is very appropriate for today. Yesterday we saw that how devotee where Radharaman Prabhu and in Calcutta, they are doing kirtan, some devotee are doing in Cochin. So this story he told prior to Prabhupada boarded the ship to go to Cochin, and just few days before Mr. Daga had invited Srila Prabhupada for lunch. So they have set a very nice table, chair, all silver plate, silver spoon, silver fork. And Prabhupada sat down to take prasadam, and he started eating by his hand. So Mr. Daga told Prabhupada, Swamiji, we also sit on the floor and eat by hand. But since you are going to West, and there everybody sits on table and eat with a spoon and fork. So Prabhupada looked at him very seriously. He said, I am not going to learn them there. I am going to teach them. I am going to teach men how to put Vaishnava tilak and put dhotis. And I am going to teach women how to wear sari. And then later on he said, in same time, he said, by the way, this spoon and fork goes in many mouths, but this spoon goes only in one mouth. So Mr. Daga said this thing once. I am very much blessed by Srila Prabhupada and all the Vaishnavas, and in the moment that we are here today. I'll just tell one story that happened with me. It was 1977. The two things happened, both in 77. We just came from Aligarh, from book distribution in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada was having darshan of Radha Shyam Sundar. He was sitting under the thamal tree. I came from Radha Shyam Sundar's side door and offer my obeisance like this. So my feet were towards Radha Shyam Sundar and my hand was towards Prabhupada. Prabhupada noticed it. And he told his servant something. And servant came and told me, but I did not know English those days very well, or I didn't know English. So I did not understand what he is saying. And Prabhupada can make it that I have not understood. So he called me. And he told me in Hindi, उधर ठाकुर है, ठाकुर तरफ पैर नहीं रखना. He said, Krishna is there, the Lord is there. Do not put your feet towards the Lord. So Prabhupada noticed even a small thing, and he was there to correct. Other story I will tell. I was assisting Aksharanand Swami, I was his servant, he was the temple president. So one morning, Prabhupada, every day, wherever he was, he used to go for morning walk, 6 o'clock morning. So that morning, Aksharanand Swami had to show something to Prabhupada. He used to drive the car. Those days they got this 3 Amlister car, red Amlister. So Aksharanand Swami asked me, my service was to clean the car before Prabhupada going for morning walk. So Aksharanand Swami asked me that when Prabhupada comes, please make him sit in the car. He told me in Hindi because he was learning Hindi, I was learning English from him, and I was teaching Hindi to him. So he told me in broken Hindi. So I was very excited. And then when as soon as Aksharanand Swami went up, and then Prabhupada came out from his room in Vrindavan. And I had opportunity, I opened the door, but I was such a fool. I should have opened the door other side, but I was cleaning, I opened the door and go down to him. But my hand was toward the door. So Prabhupada could not enter. And he was just standing there. So kind he was just standing there. And then when I got up, then I realized what a fool I am. Then he saw that I am afraid, I am frightened. He just put his hand on my ear like this, out of his affectionate love. And then he sat down and closed the door. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai.
One day Prabhupada was coming down from his flat in Juhu. He was on the second floor. So every morning he would go on his morning walk. So of course when he would come down to the garden area, there'd be 20 devotees there waiting to offer their obeisances. And everyone offered their obeisances, but one devotee was standing, one young man standing with his hands folded. And Prabhupada just started the beginning of his fall down. You hear that? That's the beginning of his fall down. Just not offering his obeisances that quickly. Huh? I say I offered obeisances sometimes 30, 40 times in a day. In 10 minutes bringing him his lunch, I could offer obeisances 10 times. He never said to me, "You've reached your quota." There is no quota. All right, I'll stop here. I believe Dear Prabhu will be speaking now.
What did he say about hatchet?
That'll be another one. If I get a minute here and there, I can speak. Like, see, he's offering his obeisance.
Listen to you, Srila Kirti. When you talk, I listen. So I'm very honored to be here amongst all these stalwart, wonderful Vaishnavas, especially the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who have rendered such incredible service over the last 60 years, since 1965. I'm a very young disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I never actually saw him in person. I joined in 1976 in Washington, D.C. as a young boy just out of high school. I was 18 years old. And I very much wanted to, I quit high school because I didn't see any value in what they had to teach. You know, they just teach you to be materialistic, to get married, get a job, have kids. There was no happiness there for me. I wanted to learn how to be happy. And in the course of that summer, after I had quit the school, on my 18th birthday, I received the Back to God magazine. And in there it showed the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So on my own, I was working in a hospital at that time. And on my lunch break, I would go climb a tree and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we had heard that we were going to join in Boston. Some of my friends, we decided we wanted to become devotees, just from reading Back to Godhead magazine. And so we were going to join in Boston, but then we heard that there was a new ashram in Potomac, Maryland, outside Washington. So we wanted to go to the country. So all my friends just said, you know, come on, David. I was David at the time. If you're attached, you can't be a Hare Krishna devotee. And they just left, took off. But I was the responsible one. I had the apartment, I was paying the rent, I had a job, and I had to give 2 weeks notice. So being responsible, I gave my 2 weeks notice, hopped on a Greyhound bus, smoked my last joint on the bus, in the back of the bus. You're bringing me up for that. Anyway, I came and I just joined. A lot of devotees did it, and as young people, we just joined. We don't know how Krishna brought us, but I had dreams of distributing books at the Lincoln Memorial. I'd never been to the Lincoln Memorial in my life. And when I came and joined in Washington, D.C., out I went to the Lincoln Memorial, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So I served for about a year, and in the middle of that year, Srila Prabhupada was coming from Vrindavan, and he stayed in London. And then he was going to come to Gita Nagara. And I was supposed to be initiated at that time. But Srila Prabhupada was very ill. And we were praying like anything. So Prabhupada had to go back to Vrindavan. He didn't come. So we waited that entire summer. And finally I paid full dandavats to Rupanuga Prabhu to go to speak and begged him that I want to be initiated by Srila Prabhupada, nobody else. Please, send him a letter and ask him for initiation. And he did that. And Srila Prabhupada sent a letter back that I accept this boy, and there were a few others, as my disciple. Let Satsarup pick the names and chant on the beads, but he is my disciple. So I'm very young, very unqualified as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. But I did experience his mercy. I remember soon after the initiation ceremony, where I was given my spiritual name, Haridadas, I had a dream of Srila Prabhupada. I don't share this very often, it's kind of intimate. But in Potomac at the temple, there was a chicken coop. There was a chicken coop. And they called it the Barn Ashram. The brahmacharis would crash there on the floor. And in my dream, I had one bed in a heater in the boiler room at the back so I could stay warm in the winter. And in my dream, I came back from book distribution, and Srila Prabhupada was sitting on that bottom bunk. And I was like, Srila Prabhupada, you're here. And Prabhupada started laughing, and he stuck out his lotus foot and pointed. And I started to massage his lotus foot. And I woke up, and I was trying so hard to get back to sleep. So he showed his mercy to me in that way. And since then, we've tried to help him spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, distributed his books, and have tried to help people become devotees also. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So next we'll be hearing from Guru Shakti Prabhu, and then we're looking for Mitra Sain. If you're here, please come up to the front. And then Maharaja Devi, Asura Kulanasana. So please get ready, make yourselves available. Thank you.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Smriti Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namni Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasajadistarani. I'm very grateful to all of you for the opportunity to be here, and especially to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Without Prabhupada, I would be nothing, nowhere. I don't know what would happen to me, but nothing pleasant. Prabhupada, he really saved me, along with so many of my God brothers and God sisters who also played such an important part in my life in giving me nourishment, shelter, protection, like that, and have helped me to become or remain enthusiastic to continue serving Srila Prabhupada. And not just my God brothers and God sisters, but also niece and nephews. We're all members of Krishna's family. And Srila Prabhupada is our father, grandfather, like that. And it is our duty and responsibility upward to and to our spiritual masters. Also, we have responsibilities so downward to help inspire others, our nieces and nephews, as much as we can. Because without the grace and inspiration that we have received from Srila Prabhupada, we would not be here. And it is our duty and responsibility to try and pass what we have received from Srila Prabhupada, from Guru Parampara, down to younger generations. And festivals like this help everyone, help us to share, and help younger devotees to understand what we went through in our generation. I grew up in New Vrindavan, and I remember that the prasadam was so how to say it nicely, unpalatable. That we would very carefully and secretively go to the barn to steal the silage from the cows and eat that, because it was more palatable than the devotee prasadam. So everybody had the trials and tribulations they had to go through in the service of Guru and Krishna. And we need to understand that within every person there's great pain, there's a great struggle. And we have to be compassionate to one another. And just as His Divine Grace gave His mercy and the mercy of Guru Parampara to us, we have to also give it to others, to share it with others. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So on August 13th, 1965, Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta in the port of Calcutta, and he wrote in his diary how comfortable the cabin was. And he thanked Krishna for dictating to Sumati Moraji to make such nice arrangements. He commented how it was the owner's cabin. If she were to go anywhere, that's the cabin she would ride in. Everything was first class. And then the ship stopped. He said it was so gentle, I couldn't even tell if it was moving, kind of like what we're experiencing now, which is so gentle. We went down the Ganga, and then it stayed, he said, near Diamond Harbor. And we stayed there for several hours. Don't know what they were waiting for, maybe the tide to come in or go out or something. And then the next day, he wrote, the ship started at about 11 o'clock this morning, majestically. He's writing to himself, and he uses big words like that. It started majestically. I do not feel any jerking whatsoever. But then, as they get into the Bay of Bengal, it gets progressively worse. And Captain Pandya, in an interview, he said, we went right into typhoon, monsoon, cyclone, there's so many different names for it, but it was heavy weather. Prabhupada said, in 40 miles in every direction, all we see is white, foamy water. And the ship is rocking and lurching. He said, I've never seen anything like this before. He goes on every day of the journey. Sometimes it gets so cloudy and rainy and foggy, he says the ship is just stopped. We're sitting in the middle of the ocean, sounding the siren so other ships won't run into us. This is my first time at sea experiencing such heavy rain. So he's going through all of that. And last night I talked a little bit about how at one point he was saying, just drop me off at the Indian Embassy in Egypt. I want to go back. It was, but anyway, the captain bought him an electric stove so he could do his own cooking in his room. And he continued on. That was the worst of it. And then, now I'm going to read what Captain Pandya says about Boston. The interviewer asked, in any of these stops, did Prabhupada say anything or do anything? And he said, well, in Boston. That's the one place I remember quite well, because that was the first place in America. We had gone into one of the big department stores, and in this department store, he had to get onto an escalator. He had never seen a moving staircase, and he looked at it and he says, what do we do now? Why is this thing going up? And I said, look, this is just going to go upstairs. It is nothing. So I said, come on. And I don't remember, I think he had karams on that day, the wooden clogs. He was a very brave man, mind you, for his age. And he got onto this, and he nearly fell off. So I caught hold of him, and then we went up. After that, we went around the town, and then we came out of the store, and he was dressed in his saffron-colored dress. He was dressed like that only. He was always going about in those clothes. It was a little cold, so he wore a balaclava that covered up his mouth. It covers the mouth, just leaves your, I guess you meant to say your eyes, you know, one of those kind of, like what bank robbers wear, only see your eyes. He had that on, and he walked along, and then suddenly I heard some woman scream loudly, and I turned around, and she was looking at who was like that, and she gave one big scream. She didn't know what creature had come. So I can't forget that part of it, you see. It made no difference at all. Many people didn't notice, I suppose, and many people did. And a lot of people would just stand on the road and look at him and walk past. The interviewer asked, did Prabhupada say anything when he first got down about the environment or Captain Pandya? No. All I can remember, he was very happy. He was very pleased. And of course, I asked him the usual question. I said, now, Swamiji, tell me, what do you feel about the materialistic world? This is now the United States of America. And his answer, you know what it would be, that it is the spiritual world that I've come here to impart. And it is the inner soul that you have to look for. He was always like that, always philosophical.
Sister Grace Maharaja, Baby Dasi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. When I first joined the Boston Temple in 1970, and I left for a little while. And during that time, I crocheted a blanket for Prabhupada, and I didn't know how to crochet. So it really came out pretty terrible. It was like 10 feet tall, and it looked like a butterfly, and there was two different colors on it, and I just sent it to him because I just wanted to give him some appreciation for, you know, introducing me to the holy name and him and the devotees. And so I never got a response from him because I forgot to put the return address on it, so I never knew if he got it. And then in 1983, when I was walking through his quarters in New York, in California, in LA, I opened up his locker and there was the blanket. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it was there, like he accepted it. He didn't even give it out to anyone. So that was pretty nice. And then another time in New Vrindavan, we were, the Sankirtan women were sitting on a hill with some other devotees, and Prabhupada was speaking to us and asking us if we needed anything. And he asked one of the girls, are you cold? Do you need a chadar? And he's told the devotees that to make sure that they always ask the women what, because they're shy and they won't ask for things, so always take care of the women. And then another time in New York, we were saying the Sanskrit, and I said it, and I got to say the Sanskrit, and Prabhupada said, very nice. So I felt pretty encouraged by that. And that's all I wanted to say, but I just really appreciate all of you devotees. You've been really, really wonderful. So thank you.
Hare Krishna. Next speaker is Asura Kulanasana and Arjun Prabhu, Jagadish Pandit Prabhu. So if you're all here, please come forward. The Kamalini was asking me to mention one other story about obeisances. And this happened, Prabhupada had one Sanskrit editor, wasn't Prajumna Prabhu.
Arjuna? Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Shri Bhakti So I was initiated in 1973 in Los Angeles. I was very fortunate to get some personal association with Srila Prabhupada because I was from Fort Wayne, Indiana, a long way from Los Angeles. But somehow I managed to join in Laguna Beach. So we would jump in the van after Mangalartik and all head up to LA so we would get to hear Srila Prabhupada give morning lecture, and if we were lucky we would get some Mahaprasad out in front of the street. I remember getting an orange peel, and you just felt very fortunate to eat that whole orange peel. So then Prabhupada had requested some devotees from each temple come and do some service in India. So the opportunity came and I said, yeah, I'd love to go. So I traveled over and I was living in Jew Beach, where Prabhupada was his headquarters when he was in India. So he would give class in the morning, he would give Gita class at night. It was just absolutely wonderful being able to sit and listen to your guru give class. I remember once Vishnu John Swami sitting there and his attention was so fixed on Srila Prabhupada. So it was amazing. And our quarters were, talking about culture shock, I was just 21 years old and we were living in a hut with rats until the rainy season came, and then they moved us to some apartments that they had just built. But it was very, very austere. But just being able to be there and see Srila Prabhupada when he would come out on his balcony, if you happened to be out, you could see him come out on his balcony. I had a good friend, Shankardas, who did all the gardening, and Prabhupada would tell him what to plant. And he had a very good relationship with Shankardas. He would chastise him every day. That was his mercy. So I remember getting prasadam from being in LA, some remnants of Prabhupada's, and I thought, wow, maybe I'll be able to get some remnants here. But one day I was in the ashram, I was the only one there, and Satsvarup Maharaj, giant plate full of Prabhupada's remnants, and no one else was there. And so he handed me this giant plate full of remnants. So I thought, wow, how incredible. I had some bitter melon, which I'd never had before, and they said that was one of Prabhupada's favorites. So I was getting a lot of mercy, even though I didn't have a lot of sit-down talking with Srila Prabhupada. Another thing I was able to do was go on a few doppel walks there in Juhu. But I also was able to start collecting the yogurt for Prabhupada's lunch, the dahi. And the other devotee was forgetting to do that service. So I would ride my bicycle with a stainless steel bucket down to the yogurt shop and bring that back and go up to Prabhupada's flat. And I would go in, and Prabhupada would be there sitting at the low table doing work. And I would immediately set the bucket down and pay my obeisances, and then give that yogurt to, I think it's Palika, one of the cooks. So it was amazing getting to do some personal service like that and be there with Srila Prabhupada. Another time after the Gita class at night, they would bring out a giant plate with a mountain of halva on it, and Prabhupada would pass out everyone. And I was standing directly in front. I could have reached out and touched Prabhupada. And there were a lot of people there. And he was handing prasadam, and my hand was right there. But Prabhupada, he waited until the very end to give me any prasadam. So I realized that he obviously knew I was standing there, but that way I got to be that close to him. It was very special. Prabhupada was so personal. In LA, we were waiting for Prabhupada to come down to give class. It was a narrow hallway. Once he came down from his flat, narrow hallway going into the temple. And I just happened to be there with my temple president, Rishabh, in that hallway when Prabhupada entered that narrow hallway. And he could have easily just walked on by to go into the temple, but he stopped and he asked us both what were our names. So Prabhupada was so very personal. He was very loving, and he cared very much for all of his disciples. So I think that's all I have to say right now. All those who feel Prabhupada.
First Mahaprasadam I ever had was also an orange peel. Try eating one sometime. Arjun Prabhu, Hare Krishna, welcome.
Hare Krishna. I want you, before I start to talk, I want you to please to help me chanting the holiday mantra. Please repeat with me, please. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was living in Puerto Rico at that time, that was 1973, and I was going to college, and I decided to start college and jumping to the movement. When I see the body in the streets of Puerto Rico, and my father, he was at that time, he was a medical doctor, and he proposed me, if you don't join the movement, I don't take it away from the back property when I die. You don't want to inherit nothing if you join the movement. And I said, oh yeah? He said, just like that? He said, just like that. I said, I don't want it. I go with the devotees. And that since that moment, my father took me out completely. I don't want to talk to you. We spent 10 years after that we don't talk to each other. But when I got initiated by Prabhupada was from Mexico to Caracas. And I couldn't go to Caracas. Something happened to me, family business, that I couldn't go to Caracas. And Prabhupada sent me as his disciple. He sent me the japa, and he said, and I promised Prabhupada when he came to me in a dream, and he told me, don't start reading Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, and don't start chanting the mantra. And since that day on, I never have stopped it. And I give you the advice that I can give you about my experience is that since that day, Prabhupada has never been away from my mind and from my life. And I feel very grateful to Prabhupada. And I hope that we will, all of you, feel the same way, the way that I feel. Hare Krishna.
Arjun Prabhu, Jagadish Pandit Prabhu will be next. And then maybe I can finish that story.
Microphone.
I was a brahmachari and I was staying at the San Francisco campus. The Prabhupada was arriving in Los Angeles, and he was coming with a bunch of sannyasis, and I just had the opportunity when he had seasons the plane landed and they were ready to board. Come out of the plane, and then all the devotees offered obeisances to Prabhupada. And then there was there's a group of sannyasis that were walking on all sides of Prabhupada, but I've been learning so much to actually have a conversation, to ask him something and speak with Prabhupada, and so I snuck in between this sannyasis and then Prabhupada, everyone cleared the way, and I was able to ask Prabhupada a question, and just hear Prabhupada. So I said, how can I please Krishna? And then he said, are you distributing my